Hello, and welcome to this last session of the morning on investing in centers of excellence, science, technology, and research. My name is Bruce Krogh. I'm director of Carnegie Mellon University's program here in Kigali. And before we go forward with our session, let me just thank once again Mrs. Awuah for this very exciting announcement, this partnership between the High Life Foundation and Yale University that we all hope, given the topic of our conversation, that this is going to be feeding students that we're going to be seeing. Let's thank her again. In this session, we're going to move the conversation now to education in science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM fields, and the need for cultivating centers of excellence in Africa for higher education and research in these areas. I'm personally very interested in this topic because I moved here 4 years ago to become the director of the branch of Carnegie Mellon's College of Engineering here in Rwanda. This is a partnership with the government of Rwanda to work on a full center of excellence in information and communication technology for the region. We're offering 2 Carnegie Mellon master's degrees here, electrical and computer engineering and information technology. We're now in our 4th year with over 100 alumni and students in our program. We've graduated 2 classes. Having interviewed and reviewed literally hundreds of applications from students with degrees from universities in Africa, and with my full-time faculty here in Kigali developing research programs in the region, Carnegie Mellon is deeply dependent on and committed to the cultivation of STEM education and research in Africa. So I'm very pleased and honored to have been asked to moderate this session today with this distinguished set of panelists who I'll now introduce to you. Their full bios, of course, are in your program. I'll start there at the end with Patricie Uwase. He's the founder and president of Shesi University, a private liberal arts college based in Ghana that's focused on educating a new generation of ethical and entrepreneurial leaders in Africa. Just last month, Patrick was named one of the MacArthur Genius Fellows for his commitment in education. Let's congratulate him.
Thank you.
Next is Patricie Uwase. She is currently the Transport Technical Advisor for the Rwandan Ministry of Infrastructure. She recently received her master's degree in civil engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, with a scholarship from the MasterCard Foundation. She's also involved in a women's mentorship program that provides young women with necessary life skills, as well as to inspire them to pursue careers in STEM. Next is Dr. Dorothy Nyambi. She's Executive Vice President of the African Institute for Mathematical Science, Next Einstein Initiative. This is a global forum and Pan-African network of mathematical sciences centers that aims to make Africa the next hub for science and technology. And finally, Dr. Manu Chandaria wears many hats, such as the chairman of the Manu Chandaria Foundation and the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. He's been a generous funder of higher education, and today we'd like him to speak from his perspectives as Chancellor of the Technical University of Kenya, the United States University in Nairobi, and founder of Chandaria Business Innovation and Incubation Center at Kenyatta University. Okay, to get our discussion going this morning, I've asked each of the panelists to provide us just a brief background on what they and their organizations have been doing in STEM education. So I'm going to actually start with Dorothy. And Dorothy, could you tell us just briefly about what AIMS is doing.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I think, just before I start to talk about AIMS, I want to just acknowledge all the speakers who spoke earlier today. I think, we are focused on mathematics and mathematical sciences, and we try to make the distinction between what is mathematics and what is mathematical sciences, which involves physics, chemistry, and everything. But all the prior speakers today have mentioned in one way or the other the importance of mathematics. And I think, where we are intervening, the work we do would never be possible without the work that everybody else is doing further downstream. So I want to say that, we cannot be working in isolation. It's a continuum, and we just happen to be at a different level of the spectrum. So that said, what we do at AIMS is we offer several things. The first is we offer a structured master's program in mathematical sciences. So we do take undergraduates from across Africa. They come from all the countries in Africa, and they come into an AIMS center, one of 5. Currently, we have 5 centers, and hopefully, we're going to be opening the 6th center here in Rwanda. But what happens at an AIMS center is they come in, and they're able to take their basic mathematics, physics, or chemistry, and begin to learn how to apply it to real-life problems. One of the things we've heard from earlier speakers is the fact that there's a problem in terms of access, there's a problem in terms of quality further downstream. And I want to just assure you that it continues even to our mainstream universities, where through this massification of education at the tertiary level, we produce lots of graduates in mathematics and science who still are not able to apply the learning. So at the African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, we try to bridge that gap, where they now take this learning and they can apply it into the financial sector, into the health sector, into the business sector, whether it is supply chain management, it's bioscience, whether it is, natural resource modeling. So that is one of the things that we do, making mathematics more applicable at a high level. The other thing that we do is, we really do foster the use of research. And, so how do you take graduates, at the tertiary level and turn them into, those, problem solvers, critical thinkers we've heard about, but at a level where they can actually say there is a traffic problem in Kigali or in Johannesburg, and they can identify the problem, and they can say, how do we model the lighting, the street lights in a city so that the traffic flow is more efficient? So, and a lot of those things are homed around mathematics, so there's a lot of research work that we do. And I would just like to say, with respect to research, the entry point for research, it's a variety of places. You can come into research, with your first degree, a master's degree, but a lot of our graduates, they'll go on to get a PhD, and then they come back into research. So we're doing a lot of work with the Bosch Foundation to ensure that, we actually set up a very strong research program that fits into our undergraduate program, plus, this research that is problem-based and impact-related. And third thing that we do at AIMS is that we cannot do this in isolation. We must do it with the host country governments. So in every country where we work, we are in partnership with the host country government, And there's several reasons for that. We do that because, we need to be sustainable, and we do that so that we can be able to take things to scale. So working with government is extremely critical, in the AIMS model. So those 3 things we do is just to make sure that when the graduates come out, irrespective of the AIMS center they work in, they trained at, when they go back to their home countries, they're able to find an enabling environment. So again, we have 5 centers currently. So we're training Africans on the continent so that they can look for solutions for development challenges on the continent, but we also expect them to be contributing on the global platform in terms of other problems that we need to solve.
Thank you very much. Patrick, tell us about Uwase.
As you mentioned when you're introducing me, Uwase is about educating ethical entrepreneurial leaders in Africa. And so we really look at this as a mission of educating people who are innovators, who care deeply about their society. And so for us, STEM education is a blend of STEM and the liberal arts. Our students will take courses in the humanities and the social sciences and mathematics and technology, all of them. And then they're specializing in computer science, engineering, management, information systems, business administration. Every student at Ashesi takes at least one programming course. So even our business students are doing courses in technology now. Even the way they study statistics involves quite a bit of programming and data analysis. And our view is we want to educate people broadly. We want to give them broad perspectives. And we need to educate students who know how to identify what are the useful questions to answer, and then to come up with answers to those questions. Another thing that we are increasingly doing is getting engaged with lower levels of the educational pipeline. So during the summers, we have summer programs for high school kids to switch them on to technology. And so they take a summer program in leadership, entrepreneurship, robotics, and engineering. And so these are kids who've not taken a single engineering course in their lives, who come to campus, they learn how to build machines and program them and see them work, and learn how engineering is hard work, it's fun, it often requires a great deal of team effort, and switch them on to pursuing a path in engineering later on. We're also engaging with high school teachers around IT and sort of getting them switched on to how to deploy technology more effectively in their classrooms. So with STEM education, we find ourselves doing a bunch of things. Our core is undergraduate higher education, but we're also doing things down the pipeline as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Manu, you've been involved in a number of projects, and I'd like you to just select one or two that you could tell us about, particularly as they pertain to STEM education.
Basically, first, let me introduce why education. My foundation, family foundation, decided to focus on health and education. Basically, it started from my father, my wife's father, and many others who came from India, settled down in Africa with only 3 vernacular. And they couldn't speak, read, or write English. They could not even communicate except internally in our own languages. So basically, this was the basic effect that they decided that if our children's future is going to be any different than ours, they must study. And to think about those times when they're very, very poor, and still think about that each one of them should study and be somewhere. So that made us to go up to the university, and like me, I did my master's in engineering. So the whole question about interest in education was the fundamental within my family history, thinking that unless and until a guy is educated, the improvement in his lifestyle will be very difficult. So I started taking interest also in the university. I sat on the University of Nairobi for almost 25 years as a council member. Subject to that, I was then asked to serve at USIU, and I then became a chairman of the council of USIU, and now I'm the chancellor. And 2 years back, the government again appointed me as the chancellor for Technical University of Kenya. Now this was just because of the interest in education and trying to see what can be done. Now the most important part that I saw, that after so many years serving the education center, hundreds and thousands of graduates in our country are pacing streets of Kenya. And there's no way we can continue this at what we call as a youth bulge. It's becoming so big, both educated and uneducated. But educated is a serious threat now because they've done their first degree, some of them done their masters, but they have no possibility of getting anywhere. So we thought the best possible way is to see how we can set something which can start the revolution in terms of innovation, in terms of what we call a Chandaria Business Innovation and Incubation Center at Kenyatta University. And this first set started allowing about 100 students to come along in the university environment, with the professors being there, mentors being there, and they're not out of the place, so that they can start working on their life, what they would like to do. And some of them have come out extremely well. So this was one set that started. And we thought, not only that, but the second university we are now looking at and trying to see whether we can again go into that university and try to sit and see them create a business while immediately after that university get the time off and make something out of it. So this was the interesting position that we took. But not only this now, every university in Kenya now is thinking of innovation center, incubation center, because they now know that their students are facing streets, and unless they give them skills and capacity of learning how they're going to do the business, in which the business environment, the entrepreneurship, the research, everything comes together, and they make them a businessman. And once they get a businessman, and if he fails, well, bad luck. But if he wins, then he immediately goes out of the university and starts his own business. That was my interest.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, this morning we heard you'd better have young people at the table if you want to have a good balanced panel, and I'm very glad the forum has invited Patricie to be with us today. And I'm going to ask her, having just earned recently her master's in civil engineering at one of the world's leading science and technology and mathematics universities, I've asked her to make some observations about what her experience at Berkeley has made her think in terms of what she'd like to see happen here in Africa. Please.
Thank you, Bruce. And I would like to first start by thanking the forum for inviting me here. And I would like to say that I'm really honored to be sitting here with this panel of distinguished people. I would say that having been at Berkeley for the past 2 years, I was transformed. Really, what education can do to a person is transforming their life, and mine was transformed at Berkeley, thanks to support from different organizations and individuals. As Bruce said, I'm a recipient of the Mastercard Foundation Scholarship, which was a big support during my time at Berkeley. But also, when I got there, one thing that I quickly realized was that I was the only Rwandan at the huge campus that is Berkeley. And that kept me thinking about ways I could really take advantage of all that was offered to me, but also how that could be beneficial to other Rwandans and other Africans in general. And so, as I studied, I like that all the panels that started talked about how education is important, and my fellow panelists also talked about how engineering can be really a lot of hard work but fun. So I really had fun at Berkeley, but also kept thinking about ways I could help back home. And one of the decisions I had made even before I went to Berkeley was that I had to come back home to Rwanda or to Africa and use all the knowledge that I would have gathered or earned from there back here. And so I'm here. That's the first thing. And in the first 2 months after I got here, I spent 2 months with 100 girls from 20 high schools all over Rwanda. And my thought or my idea about gathering the women, I came from my high school experience. So I decided to pursue engineering because one woman came to my high school and spoke about her work as an engineer. And I just got so inspired and decided to pursue engineering myself. And so I told myself, if one woman inspired me and is the foundation of who I am as an engineer today, I can also inspire as many women to pursue science and engineering. And so I gathered the 100 women for a week to have fun, just like we do in engineering. and to learn about you know, things that are really important in life skills, you know, having confidence, you know, how do you make a decision and stick to it. And these were young kids, 12 to 18, so I really wanted to make it a fun time together. And my hope is that the 100 women will be inspired to do even better with their lives and you know, not be scared by engineering and STEM fields, really.
Thank you very much. I want to turn now to a few discussion questions to address some of the issues of this topic. And I want to begin with a theme that's already been mentioned today, but now we're talking about the tertiary level. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, they require problem solving, creativity, innovation, critical thinking. And yet, it's a standard common observation and criticism of education in Africa and elsewhere in the world that education is rote. So I'm going to ask Patrick to say a little bit about this, about how to address this issue and maybe how to scale it to really see a change so that quality STEM education research in Africa becomes something that really nurtures problem solving, creativity, innovation, all the things you need to really do STEM. Please.
Right. So, you know, the question of how we teach critical thinking is really a question of pedagogy and curriculum. The rote model of education tends to be too narrow, right? So the basic model is if you're learning by rote, you're by definition always looking backwards at what others have discovered. You're engaged in educational philosophy, which is that a teacher tells you a set of questions and the answers to those questions. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the term asks you, well, I'm repeating these questions to you. Tell me what the answers are that I told you. What are the answers to these questions? Critical reasoning requires something completely different. One of the things that we do with our students is one of the first 4 courses they'll take is a design course. And it's really remarkable to see students who've come through a model of learning by rote be in a classroom where the instructor says to them, go out and identify a problem to solve. And this is the first time that have been asked to actually identify a question and then come up with an answer to that question. And what it does, for a lot of them, it frightens them. It's like, what kind of place is this? But what it does is it stretches them to see the world differently and to connect different ways of seeing and different ways of learning, and more importantly, gives them the room to reach their full potential. Now, there are other courses that we teach. I mean, it's the sum total of the educational model at Ashesi, where students are engaged in a sort of multidisciplinary educational system, where the faculty see themselves as guides to the students rather than the people who hold all knowledge and tell them what the answers are. It also involves diversity of perspectives. So I think that the liberal arts at its best involves having men and women in the room, rich and poor, Muslim and Christian, different political persuasions, different nationalities, that those people all together in a room come with different perspectives. And that makes the analysis of any question a lot richer. And so, so for us, teaching critical thinking and analysis involves a whole set of things, and it involves 4 years of getting students to take intellectual risks and pushing them out of their comfort zone, but most importantly, empowering them, giving them agency to solve problems.
Very good. Does anybody else want to make a brief follow-on to that at all?
If I may
Dorothy?
just, yeah,
Sure.
if I may just add, Bruce, and thanks, Patrick, to say one of the things that we do at AIMS is the fact that we're not like, I would say, a traditional university. You know, one of the things I heard earlier today was how do we make, curriculum and content relevant to the issues we are dealing with so that, the graduates can come out and go out there and be useful immediately or can apply their skills, for solutions. So, we do use different methods, for critical thinking, problem solving, but what I want to emphasize is the idea of relevance, making sure that, what is topical. For example, whether it was the Ebola outbreak, it's something that has happened, and so we don't wait for the next Ebola outbreak, So the AIMS curriculum becomes very easily adaptable. So whether it is at Yale, Makerere, or University Sheikh Anta Diop, we all know how difficult it is to change curriculum. It could take 10 years, for that process to go through university council and harm itself when, either the disease is over or it has wiped out a generation. So at AIMS, we really try to say not only that, but let us change the curriculum and adapt it very fast, and so on. The other thing that we really do, which we think it's really important in STEM education, is that synergy between the local universities and international partners. When Cornelia spoke, we really rely on partnerships. We're doing the training here on the continent, but we're working with lots of international partners and bringing some of the lecturers so that there's some transfer of technology. When the international lecturers come to the AIMS centers, they co-lecture with local universities. So we build the capacity on the continent, and we also then help to make sure that that technology transfer in terms of style of teaching, different methods that will enhance, it's happening. The last thing that we do is really looking at the pipeline, because I think we're working at a tertiary level of education, and we cannot wait, at the gates of tertiary education and imagine that, we'll continue to have a good pool of people who come in, who are going to come and do their masters and their PhD. So we really focus on looking at teacher training programs. And we're doing it, in all the countries where we're working in, but really doing a very strong pilot in Cameroon to look at, the teaching of maths and science. And in some of the earlier speakers who went on panels this morning, I will definitely be in touch to see what tools they have, just to make sure that even though we're looking at the master's level, the PhD in research, if we don't build that pipeline in a very solid way to make sure that all those children we saw on the video who want to become medical doctors and engineers, that they continue to be encouraged in the system, they may not end up actually living their dreams. So those are the two things I just wanted to add, the pipeline and then the relevance.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's turn the discussion to philanthropic investment in STEM. And Manu, I'd like you to tell us, especially from your vast experience, what do you see as effective models for philanthropic investment in something that just simply ultimately has to be really done at scale to have impact? And what are the measures of success? And lastly, how is it that people interested in this level of investment in tertiary education, how can they best connect with the opportunities? Please.
I think that Bob Collymore mentioned about this morning that if you see a child standing on the streets, a 7-year or 8-year-old, 10-year-old, no education, nothing to offer, what will become after 20 years? I think that foresight, and that foresight can only come through the people if they can start thinking. And I think that the private sector in the Kenya, in all of Africa, need to start thinking that what is their long-term future. Long-term future depends upon how your market is going to develop, number one. Number two, are you giving anything back to the society from where you are taking something? Unless and until that particular attitude is built up, it's never going to work out. And for that, I think there is a necessary element of all the time giving and much more of organizing people to think about this. Because thinking is the only critical thinking that we see, that long term, a private organization or a private sector would not run for 100 years, unless and until they see long-term what is going to be for them. So I think that all the corporates today, large corporates that are there, can certainly set up training institutes. They can certainly support universities and their programs. They certainly spend some time, not their own, but their management time, also to make sure that they go to the university, sit on their council. Why would I want to sit 24 years, 25 years in University of Nairobi? It's hectic. But I thought that this is my responsibility. It is not a philanthropic in that manner, that I'm not giving any money for that, but I'm giving my time. And the family requires that. My management is also designed, and we tell them that if there's any institutions and any places that you go and work, please do so. So that is one which we see in the review of every yearly, where they're working, besides the business. And that's, I think, that if we go a little bit more critical thinking in our own way, what is the long term for private sector? Long term for private sector is a better country, better developed economy, and better lifestyle of people. On that, the private sector can grow. On only poverty, private sector cannot grow.
Thank you. I want to bring up a topic that's been brought up several times and has already been mentioned here, and that's this issue of diversity and the fact that at the level of education and research that we're talking about, diversity is extremely critical. Patricie, you've already mentioned that you're involved in a program to get young girls interested in STEM and pursuing technical careers. Could you tell us a little bit more, maybe drawing on your experience at Berkeley, about what you see as some ways that philanthropic investment could really address and help with this issue of diversity?
Yeah, thank you. I like to call myself a product of philanthropic help or aid. After losing my mother at age 3, life wasn't an easy path. So at age 12, I was on the verge of dropping out of school. My uncle that was paying for my education at that time had just lost his job, and I liked studying so much. But just the thought of dropping out of school was awful to me. And then the headmaster of my school kept me in school for that time until I got a scholarship from the First Lady of Rwanda, and later on went on to get scholarships from the MasterCard and Generation Rwanda and other scholarships. So I think that really made a big difference in my life, and one of the success measures that you could have is just helping an individual from such a background achieve their dream. So thinking about diversity and inclusion of different minority groups, you'd think of economically disadvantaged people, or women, or young people, or depending on the place you are at, even black people. I first thought of myself being black when I was in America, but you need to think about all those factors and how to really include everybody on the table. Like Bruce just said, I think when you look at STEM, you literally see that there is need to include more women, and that's why I personally decided to work with young girls to make sure that the group is as diverse as it can be. Being in classes ever since high school as the only woman or 1 in 5 women, I think that's a place where philanthropic help would really be key in addressing that gap, and having women in research and STEM would definitely contribute a lot in making our research products or even our graduates much more richer, I would say.
Thank you. I want to jump to the other end. We've talked a lot about the pipeline coming in, about jobs, but it's observed and well known that at African universities there's a lack of well-trained PhD faculty. And certainly if you want to talk about doing research in Africa, the capacity at that level, senior people, the people that are going to be the mentors and everything we're talking about here, it absolutely has to be accelerated. I'd like Dorothy to say a little bit about that from the perspective of especially what Ames is doing.
Okay. Thanks again, Bruce. I think, at Ames, a little bit of background. We've had, Ames has been on for about 10 years. It started in South Africa, and it's now in 5 different countries, and we've had almost 1,000 graduates. And what we really, like to share is the fact that out of the 1,000 graduates, we have about 300 who've already completed their PhDs. And of the 300 who've completed their PhDs, 80% of them are teaching in faculties, in universities, and institutions on the continent. So we really truly believe that the method of learning that they acquired, when they went through Ames and in their further education, they're bringing it back into their teaching and how they then now deliver education, within the institutions where they find themselves on the continent. Really, really important, for us, we believe is that, again, as I said, there are different points of entry into the workforce. You can get into the workforce, from high school, from your first degree, master's or PhD. But as you said, Bruce, our universities, to be a researcher on the continent, you really need that terminal degree, which is a PhD. So we really do offer that opportunity for Ames graduates to try to go on, get a PhD so that they can come back into this research world and into this academic environment. One of the foundations that is really supporting that work, especially at the level of Ames, I have to say, is the Bosch Foundation. They're doing a lot of work with us, just with respect to how do we get researchers to really do work or that academic pool to strengthen it back here in Africa. And I'll give you a very simple example. A lot of these graduates, they would not have done their PhD on the continent. So some of them are in the United States, some of them are in Europe. But with the Bosch Foundation, which is a philanthropic organization, one of the ways they've really helped us is this is experimentation, which is where I think philanthropy comes in. They give us an opportunity to try out a concept or try out a model. And what we're doing is trying to bring back the researchers or offering them an opportunity to straddle, to actually have a sandwich opportunity where if you're a researcher at Yale and you're an African, you can come back on the continent for 5 years and still have that sandwich opportunity where you can be teaching at the University of Khartoum and still have your relationships with the faculty at Yale. It allows you to build the networks you need. It's not easy to come in at that higher level and just drop off everything and come. So that is one of the things that, philanthropy is assisting us, to make sure that it can happen. The other thing that, we're seeing with respect to going back and teaching in faculty on the continent is that a lot of our graduates are helping us in our teacher training programs, So they're able, even though they have PhD, to come back and feed into what we need to do to have better secondary school teachers, better quality curriculum, to just make sure that, again, we can build that pipeline. So I think it is another area where philanthropy is able to assist us to experiment, but we will really count on the fact that after that, governments have to take it over. It has to be something that, government has to be in partnership, private sector has to be in partnership, and not just, philanthropy alone.
Thank you. Manu, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, we have a major issue in Kenya today. We used to have 7 public universities and about 20 private universities. Today, the public universities are 23, and private universities are balanced on making total of 65. Now, to hold that 65 university, it is not possible unless you got a baseline of certain PhDs. And yet, the PhDs are shown, the same PhD is shown in one university, also shown in another university, also the third university. That kind of giving one name to the 3 places is just not possible. So I think that there was a major discussions in Kenya. Finally, the government agreed that 2,000 PhDs must be in the pipeline and constantly that must be on. It was nice to say so, but nothing happened. Finally, the matter was taken right up to the top, and we tried to see whether we can make a possibility. So without a basic education possibilities of PhDs to raise the standards of a university and keep those standards are also going to be very difficult. So to have a university is very fast. They all of a sudden, they made from 7 to 23. That was very fast. Wonderful. Now they still want another 15 to come along. But the base is not there. Okay. And so for base, I think that the private sector must work. Now, individually at university level, at USIU, where I also chair, we decided that we'll have a doctorate in business. We have already started. We got a doctorate in psychology, already started. Not only that, but we thought that only pure art school is not also a possibility. So we just opened up the science school. And so with the science block, the first degree is in pharmacy, and we are trying to make so fast possibility that we go from first degree to the master's and ultimately the PhD. And then this year we are now again putting up curriculum for science, chemistry, physics, and biology, so that it can also come up simultaneously. So I think that the pure basic education is also not serving the purpose. STEM is specifically for science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, where it is not possible to see a real progress. I was recently at South Africa attending a Rothschild gathering again of philanthropists. And we found a young woman come along and said, we want to have 1 million in coming 10 years, 1 women engineers, not in South Africa, but all of Africa. Mm-hmm. And that is a big, a big vision. Even the vision is big. To think about 1 million women engineers to be ready in coming 10 years, that's not an easy job. Because you got to have the first infrastructure, basic infrastructure, to have them and hold them, and then give them the possibility of being practically educated rather than only theoretically educated. Today, our problem in Africa is everybody comes, if Mr. Bob was here, Bob, I asked him to speak 2 years back at one of our convocation, and he told to the students who were graduating, about 1,500 students, he said, you know, if any one of I take from you, on each one of you I have to spend another 2 years, my salary, to make you fit my education, my levels of work. It means we are not producing people who are available for work. We are only producing theoretical people. Mm-hmm. And for that, there's another big discussion going on right now in Africa, at least in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, that how can we make a possibility that a practical training is 1 semester, a compulsory in every courses of engineering that they are doing. And this, if can be worked out, now how is that going to be possible unless the private sector is prepared to work? And the private sector, why would they work? Because it is again a philanthropic attitude, an attitude that for a long term for a private sector to survive in that country is only based on something if the quality of people that they employ are good.
Thank you. It's time to turn to the audience for any comments or questions. If you'll raise your hand right here. And please introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Susan Davis with BRAC, a development organization in Asia and Africa. Thank you for the excellent panel. I can't help but try to connect the discussion from earlier in the day, particularly with the Open University of Tanzania, to the challenges that you've outlined about the barriers to entry and the PhD bottleneck. And I'm just wondering, what are the ways that you think we might try to create breakthroughs? You know, there's a wide critique of PhDs and the old-fashioned way that whole institution of the university was created, and PhD as the gatekeeper. And I'm wondering, knowing you, Patrick, your ideas on how we might try to create a link between employability and lifelong education and remove this bottleneck.
Patrick?
Well, I should say that some of our best faculty don't have PhDs. To be a really good instructor, you just have to really care about your students. You have to really care about the outcome you're trying to achieve. And you have to really care about being a student yourself for the rest of your life. PhDs are useful for research. And they're necessary, okay? One of the things that we're trying to do at Ashesi is actually to not talk only about research, but always say research and innovation. So sort of link those two together. Because sometimes the things that the PhDs also do, and I don't mean it as a criticism, is to publish scholarly articles into well-known journals for their own sort of benefit, sort of their own professional benefit. And if you can link it to the benefit of your society, benefit of your students, involving your students in the research that you're doing research that's relevant to who you are, that's all very useful. But Susan, I agree that the PhD should not be an absolute requirement. At our institution, a little over 50% of our faculty have PhDs, and a little lower than 50% have research master's degrees.
I want to jump in. I'm moderator, but I want to jump in. I really liked what Dorothy said about creating networking. One of the problems with making tertiary and especially graduate education be fly out of the continent and then why don't you come back after you're done is you've completely lost connection with your network. You're not connected to what the real problems and opportunities are here, and it's a terrible model, quite frankly. So I think this emphasis on whether it's university or PhD level on how do you get the education grounded in Africa is, I think, what this is about. But I better let the audience talk again. Another question? Here, we have one right here.
Hi, I'm Spencer Tottenham with the Quartus Foundation. I really appreciated the holistic overview of how we can look at using philanthropy to advance or accelerate STEM. But one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is I understand the supply side, but on the demand side, what are specific philanthropic or investment dollars that can go into filling industry or infrastructure so that there's actually the job side for STEM? I mean, Africa is 15% of the world's population, yet most of the jobs are outsourced to China and India. And so what are some specific investment or opportunities, whether philanthropic, debt equity instruments, that you think would be really useful to kind of bridge the two together?
Thank you very much. We've been talking about the pipe coming in. It's time to talk about the pipe going out. Who'd like to address this?
I guess I could talk about it. Having been trained in engineering outside of Rwanda and Africa, and then just seeing the potential back here in Africa, I think I could talk about a few opportunities. When I decided to pursue transportation engineering, I personally had seen that most firms that worked in Rwanda were mostly Chinese or German, and Rwanda is now building our first interstate, with Uganda and the Northern Corridor. So that was, for me, a big opportunity, and I just, thought, that was an area I could work into. And then I think philanthropy is helping that, be achievable by, enabling Africans or, engineers being trained in that, and then, supplying or working in that, in the area back on the continent. And then there are, lots of other areas. There's, as Africa, builds itself, there is so many youth-led organizations that would definitely, use help from philanthropy. So I think there is a lot of opportunities on the continent in that area.
Yeah. So I have some views on that. And I don't think it's limited to what philanthropy can do. One of the things that we do at Ashesi is, as much as possible, we buy made in Ghana. We hire Ghanaians to do things. We hire Africans to do things. In Ghana, the single biggest customer is the government. And the government often, when it's trying to do big projects, will look outside for the talent. And sometimes with good reason, that there isn't actually the internal capability to do those projects. But even in those cases, they can be creative. For example, when we built our campus, we couldn't find a local company that could do the whole project. But we could find 2 local companies that together could do the project. Similarly, governments could, if they're sourcing from outside the continent, have a requirement that some of the suppliers, the value chain, is coming from internal. So there are things like that that would be helpful. It's not clear to me, you phrased your question as how philanthropy can support. I think that those organizations that are doing impact investments that are helping to build the capacities of local firms would be doing a great job or a great service in preparing those firms to take on more larger projects. And sometimes it's things as simple as having a stronger balance sheet, being able to hire 1 or 2 people at expat rates to complement their teams and so on. So those are my thoughts about how we create jobs on the continent, not only today but in the future.
Thank you. Let's take one more question. Anybody else have a question or comment they'd like to make? One right here.
Thank you very much for the very, great thoughts. I was wondering about...
Introduce yourself, please.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Jane Mwangi, KCB Foundation.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering about the need to connect the dots. The need to connect the dots intentionally. Intentionally in the sense that as we listen to all the conversation, and maybe I want to refer so much to the discussion from Dr. Manu Chandaria. On the one hand, indeed, as you said, you see a lot of educated young people being churned out in Kenya, unemployed. And on the other hand, you have a huge lot of, uneducated, unemployed. How do we intentionally look for a way of connecting these highly, educated, unemployed to the, uneducated, unemployed? And by that, it's where we are saying that you see the need, the group that is uneducated and unemployed, and probably some of them even doing very informal jobs, wanting and desiring the skills of the ones who are being churned out. Say the university students, churned out, staying at home, saying they're not jobs. The guys doing the informal work, the very small micro businesses, yearning for the same skills, saying, I can't afford to get PwC to give me, be it the legal, be it the bookkeeping, all the services I need. But you have all these university students coming out. They've trained in accounting, they've trained in marketing, but they're sitting at home. How do we link them up? And how do we use philanthropy to therefore link up these university students to the small micro businesses that are out there yearning for the same services? And therefore beginning to create mini PwCs, mini consultants, and beginning to make everybody relevant by just connecting all those dots.
Thank you very much. An interesting dichotomy. All these educated people saying, I wish I could find work. All the uneducated saying, I wish I could get educated. Anybody want to, any quick thoughts to address this,
Yeah.
please?
I think absolutely in Kenya you come from and where I come from, this question about informal businesses is a big issue. And for last 7 or 8 years, we've been pushing very hard at a private sector level that there has to be a possibility for these people to exist. And the existence can only happen provided there is all the 3 or 4 items that are required. Number 1, skills. Skills, yes, some of them have it, some that don't have it. But skills is another possibility that we can improve. Number 2, we require a finance so that they can set it up and do something about it. Number 3, which require is market. And the government of Kenya has agreed that 30% of the goods will be given and taken from the small sector. Number 4 is the space where government has done nothing. You can't have if you don't have a 500 square feet or 1,000 square feet, you can't start the whole thing. And I think that there's a huge pressure going on right now for the informal sector to have a voice and the formal sector participating with them, because they will require somebody who will tell them how to manufacture. Somebody will require how to give them marketing training. There's somebody who will require for them to do how to make the finance and make a report. All this could be done provided we first understand that these kids are our kids and they're sitting at home doing nothing. And basically, once we start with that program, I think that a possibility will start, because once I know that I need somebody who can teach me how to cook accounting, I'll look for a guy who has a degree in accounting. But I would not look because I just don't even start. And I think this is a major problem. The second thing about the skills, Africa itself is not allowing its own people to work in each country. Today I was just in Durban. We got a 200 million investments in Durban. And we have 5 engineers from Kenya, Kenyan engineers working over there, but their permits cannot be extended. And the local would not do the work. Now, how would you manage this? Even in this place, in this hotel, or anywhere you look at in the hospitality business, there's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Kenyans. And yet there's continuous pressure that you get out. So I think that we internally must also see that we are one rather than 54 nations, and think about bringing an American, bringing an Indian, bringing a Canadian to work for us. We have people of our own possibilities, but not allowed. You can't move them. So I think there's a huge potential possibility that we can use our own talents if we want to. But does the government think about it? It's a critical thinking that's required now, that how do we solve this issue of our own people being employed?
Thank you very much. One of the good things about having an early session is we've got the rest of the conference to solve the problems that we've gotten started here. Please, let's thank our panel.